When you lose someone, the world doesn't stop. It just grows quieter, meaner, and filled with people who think your grief is an invitation. 6 months had passed since Evan's accident. The house still smelled like his cedar cologne, faint and stubborn, clinging to the fabric of his old flannel that I couldn't bring myself to wash. Every morning, I made coffee for one, scrolled past the sympathy messages that had stopped 3 months ago, and tried not to hate the silence that replaced his laughter. Our home sat on a cul-de-sac outside Asheville, calm, predictable, and nosy. The kind of place where neighbors mowed lawns in sync and measured worth in property lines. Evan built this house himself. Every beam, every inch of wood, every nail carried him. And now, somehow, it carried me barely. I had an appointment with Robert Kent, Evan's attorney, that afternoon. Probate formalities. Paperwork, signatures, the dull aftermath of death. Robert was decent, gray hair, steel eyes, and the moral backbone this town pretended to have. He handed me a folder with measured care. "Everything's in your name now, Laura," he said. "No debt. No disputes. You're clear." I nodded. "Thank you, Robert. Evan would have liked that it's clean." He smiled faintly. He always kept things clean. Driving back, I felt something almost like relief. Until I saw the car in my driveway. Silver, polished, and obnoxiously new. Tara's car. Evan's half-sister. The human form of a snake in pearls. She was leaning on the hood, phone in hand, fake smile ready before I even parked. "Laura. You look wonderful. How are you holding up?" she chirped. I hated that tone, syrupy sympathy masking calculation. "Still alive," I said, locking my car. "What brings you here?" "Oh, just wanted to check in. It's been forever. The place looks beautiful." Her eyes slid across the porch, the windows, the roofline, inventorying it. "Evan really had an eye for property, didn't he?" she added. I wanted to slam the door between us, but something in her smirk made me curious. She looked like a cat sitting on a secret. I offered coffee out of politeness, though every cell in my body screamed no. Inside, she ran her hand across the banister, sighing dramatically. "It's such a big house for one person. Must be hard to maintain." "I manage," I said. "Of course you do," she smiled. "You always manage." Her words had teeth. I didn't bite. I just let her talk about her son Caleb, her tough life, the cost of preschool, her plans for the future. She wanted me to ask what those plans were. I didn't. When she finally stood to leave, she paused at the doorway and looked around again, eyes softening into something like envy. "You know," she said, "Evan always said family should stick together. He cared about that. Deeply." I froze for half a second. She saw it, the reaction, and smiled. Then she was gone, perfume trailing behind her like poison gas. That night, I sat at the dining table staring at Evan's framed photo. His kind, quiet smile looked different now. "She's circling," I whispered. "And she's not here to grieve." Outside, a storm began to gather, soft thunder rolling over the hills. I closed the curtains. For the first time since Evan's death, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. 2 days later, the storm returned. This time, it knocked on my door. I was pruning the roses Evan planted when the silver car rolled up again. Tara stepped out holding a thick manila envelope, her heels clicking against the wet stone path. She didn't even look at the flowers. "Laura," she said sweetly, "I'm so sorry to drop by unannounced, but I needed to talk. It's important." I dried my hands on my jeans. "You already said your piece the other day. This is different." She smiled, too wide, too calm. "Can we go inside?" Something in her voice made me step back, but I let her in. She walked straight to the kitchen table, set the envelope down, and rested her manicured hands on top of it like it was a gift. "I'm just going to say it," she began, eyes bright. Evan was Caleb's father. The world stilled. For a second, all I heard was the hum of the fridge. I blinked, sure I'd misheard. "What?" She nodded solemnly, as if delivering holy truth. "He told me himself. It was complicated, years ago. But I think you deserve to know." I laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You're insane." Her face didn't flinch. "I have proof." She slid out a photograph, Evan, smiling at a family barbecue, Tara in the background, holding baby Caleb. "He adored him," she said softly. My stomach twisted. "That's a public photo, Tara. Everyone was there." "And these," she continued, pulling out printed messages. "See? He said he'd take care of the boy." I scanned them, blurry screenshots, cropped, no timestamps. Amateur forgery. But she looked convinced. Or maybe she just needed me to look shaken, which I was. "You're trying to claim inheritance," I said quietly. "I'm claiming what's fair," she replied. "My son has a right to his father's legacy. His father was your boyfriend from the gas station, not mine." Color flushed her face, but she smiled again. "We'll let the court decide." My pulse pounded. She gathered the papers neatly, slid them back into the envelope, and added, almost tenderly, "It'll be easier if you cooperate, Laura. No one wants a scandal. You can move somewhere smaller. Start over." That line, "smaller," snapped something in me. I walked to the door and held it open. "Get out." Her mouth twitched. "You don't have to be hostile," I said. "Get out." She hesitated, then shrugged, strolling past me with that maddening grace. "Greg will call," she said. "He's handling the legal part. Try not to make this ugly." When she drove off, I stood in the doorway, shaking, the envelope smell of ink and lies still in the air. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mrs. Bennett," a man's voice said smoothly. "Greg Caldwell, Tara's attorney, and cousin, coincidentally. I'm calling regarding Caleb's paternal claim." My throat tightened. "Claim?" "Yes. Unless we settle privately, we'll file for estate division. I'd advise vacating the property before probate ends." I closed my eyes. "Try it." He chuckled softly. "You're welcome to fight, but truth always surfaces." When the line went dead, I stared out the window at the rain slicing through the porch light. Maybe truth does surface, I thought. But not the kind they're expecting. Asheville was small enough that gossip traveled faster than mail. By the weekend, people weren't asking if I was okay anymore, they were asking if Evan had other obligations. At the grocery store, the cashier avoided my eyes. At church, someone whispered "poor thing" loud enough to be heard. Tara's story had found its wings. I didn't react. I didn't cry. I made lists. That Monday, I drove to Dr. Michelle Raines's clinic, the same woman who had delivered Caleb 5 years ago. She'd been our family doctor forever, the kind who remembered birthdays and blood types. Michelle looked startled to see me. "Laura, honey. You look pale. Everything all right?" "Depends," I said quietly. "Can we talk privately?" In her office, the blinds were half closed, slicing sunlight into ribbons across the desk. "Tara's been saying Evan fathered her child," I said. "I just need to know something simple. Were you her doctor during that pregnancy?" Michelle hesitated. "You know I can't. I'm not asking for medical details. Just, does the timeline make sense?" She sighed, eyes softening. "No, it doesn't. Tara conceived months after Evan's back surgery. He wasn't even," she stopped herself. "Let's just say, not possible." A cold clarity spread through me. Thank you, Michelle. She gripped my hand. Be careful. Tara's dangerous when cornered. That afternoon, I dug through Evan's old phone backups. He'd synced everything to my laptop. Among old messages, I found one from Tara. Can you look at my resume draft? Evan's reply, sure, kiddo. Nothing romantic. No secret codes. Just familial and boring, the opposite of scandalous. But it didn't matter. Lies don't need evidence, they just need an audience. By Thursday, even my neighbor Janet asked, is it true about Evans, you know? I looked her straight in the eye. You'll find out soon enough. Her nervous laugh told me she wouldn't sleep well that night. Later that evening, I visited Robert Kent again. His office smelled of oak and old law books. Tara's pushing a claim, I said. Greg threatened to freeze my house. He frowned. Technically, they can file, but they'll need paternity proof. Don't engage publicly. We'll wait for the motion. I don't plan to wait, I replied. I plan to end it. He studied me, then nodded. Evan always said you were the smart one. What do you have in mind? Not revenge, I said. Verification. That night, I sat in Evan's old study and reread the messages again and again. Each time, the anger drained and something colder took its place, strategy. I printed the fake screenshots Tara had shown me, circled the metadata inconsistencies, and filed them neatly. Evidence folder number 1. Then I called the hospital where Evan had been treated before he died. Do you keep post-mortem medical samples for insurance verification? I asked. The clerk hesitated. Sometimes. Why? For a pending fraud case, I lied smoothly. He checked the database. We do have sealed DNA from his surgery blood work. My pulse steadied. Hold it under my authorization. I'll send a legal request. When I hung up, I exhaled for the first time in days. Outside, thunder cracked again, the same storm rhythm as the night Tara came. Maybe it was poetic, I thought. She'd started her lie under a storm. I'd end it under one too. I stopped mourning and started plotting. People still whispered, but now I let them. Gossip is useful when you know how to weaponize it. A week after my talk with Robert, I invited him to lunch at the lakeside diner. It was quiet, neutral ground, the kind of place where secrets dissolved into the smell of coffee and fried eggs. Tara thinks she's one, I said. Let's make her believe she did. He raised an eyebrow. You're suggesting bait? I'm suggesting closure, I said evenly. The kind that leaves a scar. He listened while I laid it out, the fake settlement papers, the quiet conversation leaked to just the right ears, the performance of surrender. By the end, he looked half impressed, half concerned. You sure you can pull it off? I smiled. Tara underestimates women who stay silent. That's her first mistake. The next morning, I called Tara. My voice trembled just enough. You win, I said softly. I can't fight this anymore. A beat of stunned silence, then the sugary tone returned. Oh, Laura, I'm so glad you're being reasonable. Caleb deserves stability. Right, I said. Let's meet at Robert's office next week. We'll sign whatever you need. She nearly purred. Perfect. Greg will draw up the papers. After hanging up, I felt nothing, no nerves, no guilt, just that strange clarity that comes before lightning strikes. That night, I received an email from the private lab I'd contacted. Evan's preserved medical sample had arrived. I paid extra for rush testing, paternal comparison against a swab I'd taken from Caleb's water bottle during his last visit. The lab director assured me results within 5 days. 5 long, quiet days. In that waiting stretch, I kept my mask flawless. I went about my errands, smiled at Janet next door, even returned Tara's calls. She bragged about how she'd soon repaint the place a soft cream. I made notes of every arrogant word. Then came Friday. An email notification pinged just after midnight. Subject line: Paternity Report, case number 7214. My breath caught. I opened it slowly. The result was blunt and merciless. Probability of paternity, 0%. I stared at the number until my pulse matched the ticking clock on the wall. Then I printed it, slid it into a leather folder, and placed it on the table like a loaded gun. Saturday morning, I visited Robert again. He read the report, whistled low. That's bulletproof, Laura. You want to go to court? I shook my head. No. I want an audience. He frowned. Meaning? Set the signing meeting for Monday. Tara, Greg, a notary. And make sure the staff knows, this one's open to observation. He smiled slowly, realization dawning. You're about to ruin her, aren't you? I met his gaze. Not ruin. Reveal. Later that day, I took a slow walk through the house. Every photo, every beam Evan built, seemed to hum with approval. At his desk, I traced my fingers over his engraved initials and whispered, they wanted your legacy. I'll make them choke on it. Outside, clouds gathered again, heavy, gray, and waiting. Monday arrived gray and heavy, the kind of sky that presses down on you until something breaks. Robert's office was packed tighter than I expected. Word travels fast when scandal smells expensive. His receptionist pretended to shuffle papers, the notary lingered like a spectator, and even the janitor found excuses to stay nearby. Perfect. Tara swept in late, sunglasses on, perfume so thick it felt like an announcement. Greg followed, smug and ready with a briefcase that looked heavier than his conscience. Laura, Tara greeted, voice dripping sugar. Hope you brought your pen. Oh, I brought something, I said evenly. We all sat at the long oak table. Robert handed over a stack of mock property transfer forms, the bait she believed in. Greg cleared his throat. So once Mrs. Bennett signs, we'll proceed with title reassignment. Caleb's claim will. Actually, I interrupted, sliding a folder across the table, we should start with proof, shouldn't we? I'd hate for any of this to seem unfounded. Tara frowned. What's that? Verification, I said. A final confirmation before the court filing. Robert nodded, playing his part. Per your request, we submitted paternity testing to a certified lab. Greg blinked. We didn't authorize. You didn't have to, I said calmly. Evan's medical records were already on file. And Caleb's sample was obtained legally, from a public item. I watched Tara's face as Robert opened the report. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. He read aloud, voice deliberate, probability of paternity, 0.00%. The room went still. Tara's laugh cracked like thin ice. That's impossible. There must be a mistake. Greg grabbed the report, flipping pages with shaking hands. This is from a certified chain of custody lab. It is, I said. And copies were already filed with the probate court this morning. So unless your cousin here wants to risk perjury, I'd suggest retracting your claim immediately. Color drained from Tara's face. Her voice rose, desperate. He could have had a twin sample, or, I cut in, you could accept that you lied. Again. Gasps whispered around the room. Even the notary froze mid-stamp. I leaned forward, voice calm but razor-edged. You used my husband's death to steal his home. You forged texts, spread rumors, dragged his name through mud to feed your greed. And now you want sympathy? Tara's lips trembled. I just wanted what was fair. You wanted what wasn't yours, I said, standing. And you're walking out of here with nothing. Greg tried to recover, stammering about clerical error and negotiation, but Robert shut him down. This meeting's over, he said flatly. Mrs. Bennet retains full ownership. And Tara, you'll hear from us again, civil and criminal. Tara's composure shattered. She lunged for the papers, but I caught her wrist. You should have picked a different man to frame, I whispered. Evan never had your child. Caleb's father is your ex, remember him? The one you told Evan was stalking you? Her eyes widened. The blood drained completely from her face. I released her and stepped back, smoothing my sleeve. Now everyone knows who you really are. Robert escorted me toward the door as the murmurs began. Behind me, Tara crumpled into the chair, sobbing, while Greg cursed under his breath. The notary avoided looking at her, ashamed. As I walked out into the crisp afternoon, cameras from a few local reporters waiting outside clicked rapidly. Someone shouted, Mrs. Bennet, is it true the DNA test cleared your husband? I turned briefly and gave the calmest smile I could muster. Yes, I said. Truth has a way of doing that. Then I got into my car and drove home, the sound of thunder rolling faintly in the distance, as if the sky itself was applauding. The town went quiet after that Monday. For once, the gossip didn't buzz, it choked. Whispers retreated into shut doors and silent phones. No one wanted to admit they'd believed Tara's story. Asheville has a funny way of punishing the fallen. Pity always comes second to satisfaction. 2 days later, Robert called. Her claims withdrawn. Greg's trying to disappear the paperwork, but the court already logged everything. And she's under review for fraud. Good, I said. He hesitated. You want to press charges? I looked out the window, at the yard Evan built with his own hands. The roses had bloomed again, unapologetically red. No, I said. Let her live with the humiliation. It'll last longer. That night, I poured wine and sat by the fireplace. The house was quiet, but not lonely anymore, it felt earned. I took the forged screenshots Tara had made, fed them into the flames, and watched the paper curl into ash. The fake messages turned to smoke, rising like her lies finally leaving my walls. On the mantel sat Evan's photo. I raised my glass toward it. They tried to erase you, I murmured. But I erased them. The firelight flickered against his frame, as if he approved. A soft knock at the door pulled me back. I opened it to find a courier standing in the rain, holding a legal envelope. Delivery for Miss Tara Caldwell, he said. I smiled. She doesn't live here. He frowned. Oh. Address matches this house, though. I took the envelope, glanced at the header, notice of eviction. My smile deepened. I'll make sure she gets it. When he left, I placed it on the coffee table beside the wine glass, the edges slowly soaking up condensation. Outside, thunder rolled again, soft, almost familiar. I leaned against the doorframe and whispered, "Justice served." Then, facing the invisible camera in the quiet of my living room, I let my voice drop low, that final, cold invitation for the audience who loves a good reckoning. So, what would you have done? Walk away, or make her confess in front of everyone? I didn't just clear my husband's name, I ended her game. If that felt satisfying, hit like, share, and subscribe. Because here on Savage Revenge, justice is always served, with a savage twist.